Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan Emmis Pearce. Ukraine War Frontline update for the 2nd of August 2024. Few things to note today. If you don't know what the lines mean on my map, please check out the key to the video at the moment. There was something on Twitter actually that I thought was a really useful chart. I'm going to find that in a second. Just going through the Institute for the Study of War daily report, the summary on my own ATP Geo distilled website, ATP Distilled. A few things that the ISW picked out. One is that the Russian MOD may have considerably exaggerated the number of contract soldiers it has recruited since autumn 2022. I'm going to check that source out, see what that has to say, but I thought that's interesting. Zelensky's identified manpower shortages as a serious issue for Ukraine. Obviously, we knew that, but it's the ability to, I think, staff those new units that he is putting together. Russian forces are continuing to adapt naval rocket systems for use against land targets. We've seen another one of those naval maritime rockets systems put on the back or on the top of an MTLB, I think it was, that was taken out recently. So there are signs that things are difficult. However, the Russians are taking fairly considerable amounts of land at the moment. For example, this chart shows how the Ukrainians were taking back land in August, September, October last year, and then it all sort of changed, and Russia started taking back more land. May was their best month. It dropped down hugely in June, and then July was a really good month for them as well. 177 square kilometers in July. So it is tough for the Ukrainians, as we know. All the usual arguments still apply that the Russians are taking ground, but it comes at quite a cost. No change to the Kharkiv front line at all, either of the two sectors up there. No change at all to Kupiansk, Svratovo to Crimea. Frontliners, according to both the mappers I'm using at the moment, haven't used deep state maps for some time because I just don't have physical time to update the map with that third mapping source. No change to the Seversk front line or indeed the northern Solidar Bakhmut frontline. A little bit of a change here to Andrew Perpetua's idea of what's going on in Kalinivka. This is just to give you an idea where we are. Chasiv Yar to the west of Bakhmut, where the Russians are trying to push through there so they can start taking this semicircle of cities and towns, Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Konstantinivka, so on and so forth. Struggling to make huge moves through Chasiv Yar. They appear to have got to the canal, and that's what Andrew Perpetua is saying, that through this wooded area up to the culvert here, the Ukrainians have been pushed back. Now he's then saying the Russians do control some of this land just to the west of the canal, and that is definitely a worry. Slightly different interpretation to Surat maps though, that has the Russians inside the buildings of the first part of the main urban area of Chasiv Yar. The canal micro district there was taken, but you have that separated by the canal that goes north-south here. This is slightly worrying that the Russians are moving into that area. They were hoping to take this, and in fact everyone was expecting them to have taken Chasiv Yar by the end of summer. That looks highly unlikely. It's unlikely they're going to be able to take Chasiv Yar by the end of this month, given that they are just stepping foot in the main part of it now, but we shall see. And then we come further to the south. No change to the Toretsk area that's seen quite widespread Russian gains in that region, in that sector, but actually some more gains into New York, as according to Surat maps, taking this whole area here, or not this whole area, sorry, expanding the area north. So it did go up like that. They've expanded north, east and west of that little bridgehead there into the New York, the kind of eastern part of New York. So some gains there. And as we come down to the Pokrovsk region, some gains, as according to both Surat maps and Andrew Perpetua in that area too. Surat map says, after the arrival of numerous reinforcements in the last 2 weeks, the Russian advance towards Pokrovsk has accelerated. So reinforcements for the Russians. The Ukrainian defences are starting to fall more easily due to the shortage of personnel. In addition, in order to reduce losses, Russian forces are carrying out enveloping movements with the aim of forcing the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from these positions while subjecting them to heavy shelling. A strategy reminiscent of those applied by the Syrian army's Tiger forces during their fight against the Islamic State and terrorist and opposition groups in Aleppo and Idlib. Less than 10 kilometers now separate the Russians from the first houses of Minihrad. So yeah, situation there is getting challenging for the Ukrainians, or has been challenging for some time. The idea is that the Russians are and they do seem to be taking ground at the quickest of rates that we've seen for some time, really. Just consistently marching through. The Ukrainians must be unable to just dig down in any given place. They're just not routed, but they are being forced backwards, and fighting like that is difficult. I guess they, like I've said before, they're just waiting to get to their major fortifications at some point here, and as long as they bleed the Russians for as much as possible, then they're more willing to cede territory than to cede human lives. But yeah, it does depend what losses the Ukrainians are taking in these areas compared to the Russian losses. And then I've kind of skimmed over that rather a lot, actually. Sorry. So they are moving in this northern part of the Avdiivka or Pokrovsk sector. They're moving to the west all along this line towards the Hrodivka, which looks like a fairly sizable settlement there. Ivanivka as well. We'll see if they slow down towards there. And then going sort of southwest here towards Zhelane and Sahivka along the railway line, some gains there along the railway line, as well as fairly significant gains just westwards. And they're closing in these kind of fields and gaps. So it's all fairly contiguous, really, coming around that area. So yeah, definitely the most challenging of areas, and Zelensky's even admitted that as well. No change, luckily, to Kharkivka, Krasnohorivka, all on towards Kharkova from Mariinka. A slight gain for the Russians in the area towards this road. Now, this is a problem for the Ukrainians. The Russians are gaining on Konstantinivka, although no gains in the last 24 hours. But here, situation of the Ukrainian army in the Vuhledar area is becoming complicated. Russian army cut off the main supply route remaining to this locality. So that is to say, this is the main road that comes down from Konstantinivka to Vuhledar, and that they have cut that road off. Obviously, you can get through from other routes, but it's just not as easy. This is definitely a challenge. From now on, the supply can only be carried out through secondary roads in the rear. Nevertheless, the battle for Vuhledar is far from over, as it will be necessary for the Russian forces to secure the rest of the road, advance to Vodyany and take the Terikon, and that allows monitoring the Ukrainian movements in all of this extensive area. That may be talking about this area there. There's a mine just to the northeast of Vuhledar along that road, and that road comes up to where it has been supposedly, according to Surat maps at least, interdicted by the Russians. So definitely some challenging news coming out for the Ukrainians. The Russians are still making those gains. How much they got left in the tank, I keep asking that every day. We just don't know. We shall see if they culminate sometime soon, or whether they can just keep going and throwing these men into the battlefront and keep grinding out those kilometers. Anyway, no blue pins there, no further gains along the south or along Dnipro River. Hopefully that's of some use to you, gives you an indication where the Russians are still continuing to make those gains. Anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate your support. Take care, guys, and speak soon.